So bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to...
Shh. Hello and welcome to the Everyone Has a Story podcast. Joining me today is Bibi Ansari. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
You know, and I should say your true real name is Bibi Naz. I love Bibi Naz. I just love how that sounds.
Thank you.
That's a great name. But anyway, Bibi is the founder of the Anxiety Coach and also the Inner Roommate. And so we're going to talk about that here in a couple minutes. But so today's story is we're talking about anxiety. And probably, we all have anxious moments when we have to go to public speak or we're going on a flight. There's so many people who just are deathly afraid of flying. Well, my wife is deathly afraid of bears. Okay, that's normal, right? Okay, and so we decided that when we moved back to the Pacific Northwest, that I was going to take up my favorite hobby of fly fishing. So we planned this trip that we're going to take a week, and we're going to go through northern Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and we're going to fly fish every day. Well, my wife, it's not that she has the same passion that I do when it comes to fly fishing, but she just wanted to spend some time with me because I spend a lot of time when I'm at work, I'm spending long hours. So she decided that she was going to go fly fishing with me. So we fly fish in the morning. We get up early, we fly fish. So we go to this little restaurant, a little cafe down the river from where we are, and we're having breakfast. And my wife says, we're in the middle of Montana. Isn't there bears here? And I'm thinking, there's no bears here. We're too close to a civilization. We're not going to have any bears even come close to us. So you have nothing to worry about, because my wife really did not want to go out and stand in the stream and be afraid that a bear is going to show up. So I've got her convinced there's no bear whatsoever. So the waitress comes by, we're having some small talk, and my wife says, by chance, have you ever seen a bear here? And she goes, oh yeah, all the time.
Oh no.
Just the other day, my son and I were walking down the path to the river, and my son jumped over this log right onto a sleeping bear. So the bear ran off scared and all this kind of stuff. My wife's eyes are this big, right?
Oh
I'm going, oh my God, there goes my fishing partner for the week. So 2 days later, we're now in a different part of Montana. We get done fly fishing for the morning. We're now going to go have some lunch. And we're sitting there at a different restaurant, and we're enjoying our lunch. We're talking about the fish we caught. And these two guys sit down to the booth right next to us. And then one guy goes, hey, you hear about Mrs. McGillicuddy, about the size of bear that she saw snooping around her house when she freshly baked her new pies? My wife's eyes are getting this big again. And the guy goes, no, how big was it? He goes, oh, she said it was the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. I'm going, oh my God, there goes my fishing partner. So now, from then on, my wife did not throw another fly the entire trip. She sat right by the river where she could see me. I could see her. She was in her chair. She's reading her magazine, but she was not going to fly fish because she wanted to be 2 steps away to the car where she could lock herself away from that bear. So that's my story about anxiety. And I know we're going to get into that a little bit more in depth here. But now that you've nicely laughed at my story, thank you for that. Why don't you tell everybody, Bibi, a little bit about you, okay?
For sure. So I was an interior designer, and I was kind of traveling the world for that and working in that, but I really had very bad crippling anxiety myself. And my anxiety was about the phobia of getting cancer. And so, for me, that was about 10 years, and it was really hard, though I was a high functioning anxious person. And what that means is that I did have the crippling anxiety, but I was very good at also being very functional. So I could go to work, get things done, but on the inside, I was dealing with a lot of that. I went to many professionals, and then finally I found a coach who was able to really help me. And so she kind of changed my life. And that was when I decided I want to do the same for others. And so here I am.
And you're my guest, and we're going to talk to the small business owners and their teams about anxiety and how it can be crippling, but how it can be overcome as well. And so I've had a lot of business owners talk to me, And they always bring up, I'm always stressed out. I'm always stressed out. And they think it leads to anxious moments. So let's get this out of the way right away. What is the difference between anxiety and stress?
A lot of people always ask, are anxiety and stress the same thing? And it's absolutely not, because stress is external and it's short term. So it can be something like finances, or if you have a deadline coming up, or if you get in an argument with someone. Whereas the anxiety, it's long term and it's internal. So it's more fears, phobias, trauma. And the anxiety is around even when the stressor is not. So they're really not the same thing.
Okay. So give us an example of stressor and an anxiety.
Yeah, so stressor could be, you have a project deadline coming up. So you feel stressed, you got to get it done. It's short term, it's external, something happening on the outside, you got to get it done. It's done by Friday, so you're kind of stressed about it. Now, if we look at anxiety, for example, it can be, we can use my example. It could be, I have a phobia of getting cancer. It's internal. It's not happening out here, but it's within me, and it's long term. So, for example, mine was 10 years. For some people, when you ask them, how long have you had anxiety? They'll say, oh, since I was 9 years old, for example. So again, it's more long term and it's internal. The fear is not happening out here, but it's really within you.
All right. So now something happened that said, okay, I'm going to change my life, my career. I'm going to start helping others. What was that tipping point for you?
The tipping point for me was really about how much I needed help and how much the help out there really wasn't good. For me, it took about 10 years, but I really believe it doesn't need to take that long. I think if you're working with the right professional who knows really how to work with anxiety. And so for me, when I found my coach who changed everything for me, I decided that's what I want to do with my life. I really want to dedicate myself and make my mission in helping people so they don't have to go through what I went through.
Okay. And so I know that you claim that you can 100% fix anxiety. So tell us what that process looks like. What do you actually do for your clients?
So, there's anxiety and then there's the anxiety disorder. So just to make it clear out there, the regular anxiety, the fight or flight, well, that's always going to be with us. That's not something anyone can heal or cure or anything. But if we're talking about it, the anxiety disorder, yeah, for sure, my program offers that we could really end that for people. And the way that works is getting to the root cause of the problem. Why is this person even having anxiety? Where did that even start? Because I believe, people are born like a blank canvas, and we go through life. There's traumas, there's negative experiences. We make big decisions, we create beliefs, and those are what really starts the anxiety. So by getting to the root cause, we're able to heal that. And so why would a person have anxiety anymore once all of that is taken care of?
Yeah. And you've always, when we've talked about this in the past, you've always talked about how your clients are always standing in their own way. What does that mean?
Well, the problem is because anxiety is internal and it's our fears, it's our insecurities. It's not really what's happening out there. So for example, for me, when I had a phobia of cancer, all day I was checking my body looking to find cancer, or I would memorize symptoms of different cancers. That's something happening within me. Whereas in the real world, I didn't have cancer, but for me it was like everything planning like I did. So that starts to create a space where you start to stand in your own way. If you don't take care of these fears, your insecurities or whatever is a blockage for you, sooner or later you start to, you do stand in your way, because you can't go to the next level. You can't live free. You can't be at peace.
And so if they don't take care of this, what's that going to look like in their lives?
Well, I personally think if you have anxiety disorder and you don't take care of it and you constantly stand in your own way, but you're numbing yourself out to it, or you're not choosing healing, I don't think you live your best life, and that would be a shame.
Yeah. And I know you've talked about how you used the phrase a couple times that they start sabotaging themselves. What does that mean?
Well, it starts to become self-sabotage because, you're not getting to the next level in your career. You're not getting to the next level in your personal life. And you're not getting rid of this anxiety. And then you start to get angry. Why am I not getting that promotion? Well, it's so interesting. So many of my clients that I work with initially, they're so upset about why not going to the next level. But if you really look at it, well, you have so much anxiety, you have so many fears and insecurities. How are you expecting to get to the next level with all of this baggage, right? So then you're not moving forward in life. You get angry, so you start to self-sabotage. I'm this, I'm a loser, I'm weak, I'm this, so it's just a downward spiral from there.
So I really thank you for sharing your story and your journey. So let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into your personal story. And I know you've always talked about how it wasn't until you really became honest with yourself that this happened. Tell us what that means.
Yeah, so I believe that, with anxiety, a big part of my healing journey was when I found my coach. She was really honest and she'd call me out on things. And that to me was priceless. And I think it's so important to work with someone who can call you out. And, I always use the example as in like, when you have those kind of friends that you're like, hey, does this dress look nice? And then there's one friend that's always like, yeah, it looks great. You look amazing. And then there's the honest person, the honest friend that's like, no, you look like a freaking tomato. We talked about that before, but like, don't wear that, And so that's what I really find. Same thing in professional help. I think I love this about my coach, that she didn't sugarcoat anything. She'd really called me out on my negative behavior or my patterns. And I think that was really key.
Yeah. And I love that, and that's going to be a visual in my mind for the rest of my life. No, you look like a freaking tomato. I love that. And thank you for that honesty. So now let's talk about the inner child. You brought that up a couple times. Over time, what does that really look like how it builds up in a person over time, that inner child?
I think the inner child is always with us, and it will be till the day we die. We'll always have our inner child, but it's really about how is the inner child doing? Because as we grow up, there's, things that happen in all of our lives, and negative things can happen and have different impact, but we never really, or no one ever really stops us while we're growing up to say, hey, how is your inner child feeling, for example? And so that's why I think it is so important to do mindset work and do the work of healing, because if your inner child is happy and good, you are happy and good as an adult. If the inner child is still hurt and there's blockages, well, you're going to experience that as an adult as well.
Okay. So you've told me stories about how there's some people who carry baggage since they were like 6 years old and they're now in their 60s.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like over the last 60 years for them?
Heavy.
Yeah.
First of all, I have to say we all have baggage. But it's a choice, are we gonna keep carrying this baggage, or are we gonna seek help or work through it so we can get rid of some of it? As it goes for, that example that you just mentioned. Yes, and this is not just one client. This is even my life. This is anyone's life, things happen at a young age and you make decisions, and if you don't work through them, you could still experience that at 60, 70, 80. It doesn't matter.
Boy, and just think of all the days, the good days that they've robbed themselves of, huh? Man, that's sad. So let's now talk about how you work with a client. Give us an idea of what your very unique method is to work with a client.
So working with a client, we do a 15-minute consultation. It's really about making sure that I know I can help them and that we're going to be a good fit for one another. And also it's important to know that they're really ready to end their anxiety. That's a really important factor for me. I'll never get on a phone call and I'm trying to convince them, because it's a choice. And so they have to choose that they are ready to end it. And so from there on, they sign up to my 10-week program and we work through every layer to heal their anxiety.
Okay. And so after you've found out that you are a good fit, you did that complimentary conversation, and now you're getting into the meat and potatoes of what you do. Give us an idea, walk us down that path of what that 10 weeks might look like if someone wanted you to help them.
So, it would be really about, like I said, the first thing would be being a good fit for each other. And then if they sign up to the program, it's really, those 10 weeks going layer by layer and discovering what's the root cause of their anxiety. Why do they even have it? What's really going on for them? So we can get to the bottom of it and then heal that part. And nothing else is there to give them anxiety.
Okay. And so I love that you've had 100% success rate, and some people are going to probably question that, but obviously facts are facts, and so as you're leading them down that path, I'm sure there's obstacles along the way that you have to maneuver not only yourself, but the client around. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of blockages that come up, and I get it. There's a lot of limiting beliefs. And I think that, that really goes back to the client it's a belief for them that they have to live with anxiety forever. And that's really about, personally, I can see why that happens because, I went to 25 different professionals myself and I still had anxiety. And so I was becoming hopeless. I thought, oh, this is what I just have to live with. So it was starting to become an actual belief for me. So I can see that also happening with a lot of clients. And that's a blockage that we have to work through and just say, trust the process. This is a belief. And work through that. And as the weeks go by and they can already see their anxiety is going down, they start believing that, oh, this is working, something is different. And I think a big part of that is, excuse me, that I had anxiety. I think that's really important.
That you've walked in their same shoes.
Yeah, that I walked in their same shoes. And I think that's key. It's so important because I really get it.
So you talked about your own personal journey where you had years and years of medical practitioners helping you or trying to help you, and they just couldn't help you. And then you found a coach, a non-medical practitioner that really turned you around. So talking to my audience moving forward and to the audience moving forward, what advice would you give them on really how to find that right person, that right coach for them?
It's really about, first of all, not giving up. If you are hopeless, Don't give up, have hope, because I can totally see how that can happen, as it did for me as well, because it was just so hard to get any result. It was always about how to manage it and, just keep going and keep going. I'd feel a little bit better and then I wasn't feeling so good anymore. So, you got to have hope. Even though you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, doesn't mean the light's not there. So keep moving forward. I think the other most important thing is find someone who knows what they're doing with anxiety. Have they had anxiety? If you haven't had anxiety, how can you help someone with anxiety? It's not possible, People who have never had anxiety, there's no way they can understand an anxious person. So really do your research, make sure they know how to work with anxiety. Ask them, have you had anxiety before, like an anxiety disorder, not just fight or flight? I mean, the real thing, right? The real painful version of it. And I think connection is so important. If you get on the phone with a coach or a therapist or whoever, a professional, and you don't feel a connection and it feels awkward for you, don't go ahead with that, because this person is going to become someone that you have to share everything with, and you have to find that deep connection with them, and that's not there. Keep moving forward and find someone else. I think that's really important.
Okay. Or they could find you.
Or you could call me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in closing, Bibi, what final advice, besides just not give up on yourselves, but really what final advice would you inspire, especially the small to middle-sized business owners who right now are about as anxious as I've ever seen them before with all the things going on with the COVID-19, the restrictions, one moment where you got this restriction, the next moment we have other restrictions, and 2 weeks later we get new ones or we get ones taken away. It's like watching a ping pong game and you're standing right at the center court, your head's going back and forth. What really closing advice would you get to help inspire these people to make a move forward?
I think my biggest advice in that is life is unpredictable. We all got a taste of that this year, this past year. And so I think a lot of the anxiety that people may bring upon themselves is the obsession with control. I think if some things are out of your control, they just are, whether for some people they're like, but what do you mean I want to control everything? Well, you can't, right? So that can bring on a lot of anxiety in itself. So I think, acknowledge what is in your control and what's not in your control and work with that rather than obsessing and trying to figure out things that are not in control, because that right away brings anxiety, because that's not possible for you to control that. That would be an advice. Obviously, my other advice is always healing is a choice. If small or big, if there's things in your life that are roadblocks or blockages or making you stand in your own way, as I was saying, choose healing, because I've been on both sides of the spectrum, and it's amazing when you heal and what you get out of it and the life that you get to live and how free you can be.
And would you say that from a business owner standpoint, joining like a community of like-minded business owners that can build that community, build that mastermind relationship so they can really share their ups and downs as this journey keeps going and we have no idea what the next day looks like? What kind of advice would you give to them about that?
I think that's great. I think that's so important. I always say though, because a lot of times when people get together and it's about putting all our minds together, some people get so into it that, if this person says jump, it's like, oh, this person said jump, so I'll jump. I think take the good, but also keep your mind in the process as well. Be mindful, but be inspired and get inspired from one another. And I think it's always great to be in teams and supporting each other, especially during difficult times. But I always say, as long as you also have a good protective shield around you, you're not taking everything in, the good, the bad, or this person comes on and says, oh, I'm dying, this is terrible. Like, you don't want to take that in. so take the good versus the bad and have a nice protective shield around you. But I think, yeah, it's always great. I think together is always better than alone.
Perfect. And one more thing in closing, how can the audience get a hold of you if they want to seek you out for your expertise?
Yeah, so my platform is LinkedIn, so they can find me on LinkedIn. If they just put anxiety on the search bar, I pop up. And also my website, it's www.theinnerroommate.com.
And how'd you come up with the inner roommate?
So the inner roommate is from the book, The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer, which is my favorite book in the world. It's amazing. And so that chapter really resonated with me about that inner voice, the inner child, or that inner roommate that just never be quiet. Just keeps always talking to you and tells you the good or the ugly, but you believe it, you take it, so I thought it's so true when it comes to anxiety. It's all about that inner roommate. So I thought that would be a good name.
Oh, I love it. Great message. So I can't thank you enough for being my guest.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we'll be on another podcast real soon. So thank you for that.
Yes, I can't wait. Thank you so much for having me.
The Everyone Has a Story podcast is very honored and humbled to acknowledge the following sponsors. Thank you all for your loyalty and faith in the content. I want to really thank Dave and Dara Feldman at Virtues Matter, the most positive and grateful husband and wife team that helps individuals bring out the best in themselves and others with workshops, retreats, consulting, and the Virtues Card app. Maury Zelkovich at the Maury Method, the world's only brainwave entrainment engineer helping people with stress, anxiety, and so much more. Priya Kumar at Results Coaching, the executive transformation coach providing business financial intelligence that really helps flip that switch on their profit. Jennifer and Gene Sievers at the Sievers Real Estate Team, the husband and wife team serving Pierce and Kitsap County residents with their home buying and selling needs. Eric and his superhero team at Ivy Cat Web Designs, no doubt the real superheroes of web development and design. Stephen Buller at Buller Accounting, giving business owners depth and insight to their numbers in his own unique way. Rebecca Howell at Custom Bookkeeping and Accounting, delivering trustworthy bookkeeping services since 2003. And Tim and Sadie Marlowe at BD Local Podcast Studio for the use of their studio and their expertise with the necessary production and editing to make this podcast happen.